Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindset-Conquest Podcast, where every week I'll be joined by a special guest who will be sharing what they've experienced as the biggest failure in their life, but most importantly, the lessons that they've learned from that experience. I'll be spending time with people that I've met throughout my life's journey in business, music, and sport. And the goal is to provide listeners like yourselves with the motivation needed to get through all of life's challenges and learn not to be afraid of failure, but rather to embrace it. Please like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. I'm Chris Atwell. I'm a mindset coach, a music producer, and a sales leader. In today's episode, I'm joined by Steve Cristini. Steve is the co-owner of Cristini Athletics, a family-built fitness and lifestyle community. He's a CrossFit Games competitor, an entrepreneur, and a dad. He's a registered kinesiologist with a BA in kinesiology. He believes in hard work and big goals. He lives in Stouffville, Ontario with his wife, Jordana, his daughter, Isabella, and his French bulldog, Frankie. Hi, welcome to the Mindset-Conquest Podcast. I have a special guest today, Steve Cristini. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Happy to have you. Listen, I'm gonna start with a simple question. Why don't you tell us about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do in life?
So obviously named Steve Cristini. I am co-owner of Cristini Athletics. We are obviously a fitness and lifestyle brand, but obviously we represent two different gyms in the GTA area. What we do is we change lives and we strengthen communities. We encompass family values, health values, and all around well-being. And we do that through different means. We do that through things like workouts, but we do that things through mindset, similar to this. We have a great team of coaches that work for us. And one of the biggest things we talk about all the time is mindset. So that's kind of like my professional side. I'm also a competitive CrossFit athlete. I've been so for, I forgot how many years at this point. I think like 13 years. I guess you could say I'm like the older side of it now, but I'm still going, just purely for passion. I'm a dad. I've got a almost 2-year-old, should be 2, I believe, on the day that this podcast comes out.
Amazing.
There you go. And I'm a husband, and I guess you could say I'm a dog person.
So
kind of the rundown. I got a frenchie, man. He's everybody loves him. He's whiny and he farts a lot and he sheds a lot, but he's cute. He's very cute. He's a good gym dog too.
Amazing. Dogs are absolutely man's best friend. That's fantastic. Yeah. 13 years of CrossFit. That's incredible. And you've competed in the CrossFit Games as well. How many times were you at the Games?
So I've only been to the Games officially once. I have qualified twice, but that's a story that will come later. Mm-hmm. But I've also, assuming that this year goes well, this will be my 9th year competing at, there's been different names for it. So I guess this year it's now considered, I think, quarterfinals, I think is what the term is. But it's basically like the regionals was the name, and then it was the sanctionals. Now it's the quarterfinals. So this is my 9th year of basically being at the kind of the final tier of the CrossFit Games right before the actual main event.
Amazing. And you've been in business for yourself. You run a family business, fitness, lifestyle type thing. How long have you been doing that?
That's also been 13 years. That's been kind of part along right with the competing. So my mom and my brother and myself have been running our business. Started back in my parents' garage in 2007, 2008. I don't even remember anymore now. It's getting a long time now. And it's just gone from there. A lot of things have changed throughout the years, a lot of evolution, a lot of growth, rebranding even, and again, different focuses. We're, I think, at the best rendition of what we've had, and, constantly looking to continue to make improvements to it. Fitness is ever changing. One thing I think the pandemic has taught a lot of people was that the fitness itself is like a byproduct. It's the mental health of the fitness that was almost the most important piece. And I think people really realized that when the fitness was taken away. especially in like such a social environment like our style of gym. It's a people business first, right? Like I'd be lying if I said I'm not a people person, because at the end of the day, nobody runs a gym, especially in our way, where if you don't love people, like you're not in the right place. Like this is all about the people.
100%. I mean, I've been part of your gym for the last 5 years now, pretty much. And you hit the nail on the head. When the pandemic hit, it was a real mental health struggle at first, knowing that, hey, where am I going to go to connect with the people in my CrossFit community? How am I going to work out? How am I going to, de-stress and handle these emotions that I'm feeling? So yeah, I imagine there was a lot of learnings as an owner out of that. So while we're together, the big question, and this is the premise of the podcast, is, what do you consider your biggest failure? And out of that, what did you learn from it?
So I thought about this question, and it's a story that kind of comes up a lot. Obviously for me, it's on like my athletic endeavors more than anything, because it was one of the biggest crushes to my life. Like it was one of the hardest things to go through. But at the same time, it wasn't a true failure. So it's kind of like weird, but at the same time, I learned a lot from it, more than I've learned from other failures, because trust me, I failed a lot. So the story being that, in 2016, we made it to the CrossFit Games. Things seemed well, but we didn't have a great CrossFit Games experience. We went in there ranked 8th place. We ended up coming near last. That is a whole other story as to why that happened. I'll leave that part out. It doesn't matter. So you can imagine the bitterness of being like, okay, you made it to the Stanley Cup and then you got kicked out in game 1. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And then 2017 came, we had a new teammate, didn't know how things would go, but we made our best effort, and we came 6th place in our regional. And that year, top 5 teams made it to the CrossFit Games. So, the previous year was like, it was a win, but it was a failure at the same time. And then the next year was another failure, because now we were 1 spot out from going back. So that was like, we had the bitterness of 2016. We had the failure of 2017. 2017 like hurt a lot, and it felt like a really big failure. And I didn't think things could get any worse. And I actually thought that year, that was the biggest failure of my life. And I thought, the worst thing that can happen is you don't make it, right? And I think that changed my mindset in 2018. So, going through the training of that year, thinking the worst thing that can happen is you don't make it. And guess what? You're still going to survive. You're still going to be breathing the next day. Your family's still going to love you. And ultimately, like, I'm passionate about the training. I'm still going to love training, and I'm still going to love doing what I do. That was my mindset of 2018. In 2018, things went great. Things were going incredible. We put a lot of the pressure off of ourselves that year, because it wasn't like we have to repeat. It was like, hey, if we don't make it, we don't make it. We're going to try our best anyways. We've already been through that worst possible scenario, because realistically, like, everybody wants to be 1st or 5th. Not a single team wants to be 6th. Like, they'd rather come last than come 6th. So we've already been in that spot. So in 2018, I forgot about this part. This makes it even worse. The week before our event, one of our teammates broke her foot. So she broke her foot, threw a total wrench into everything, because we had everything planned. Our sub, who was Sandra, she needs to be on this podcast. She's got one of the best mindsets I've ever experienced in life. She's amazing. We told her like a week before, it was like, hey, you got to call work. Like, you're coming with us to New York next week to compete. And she's like, okay. So she just jumped at it. Right. And, so we went, we showed up, we had even less expectations other than just simply going out there and doing our best, because we had a teammate who jumped in with a week's notice. Everything was flipped upside down on us. Day 1 of the event, we were doing decent. I think we finished day 1 in like 7th place, which wasn't bad. Day 1, day 2, we creeped ourselves into 6th place. Day 3, it was down to the last event. There was like a 5-way tie for 5th. And the very final event, we annihilated it. We crushed the event. We secured ourselves into 3rd place. So not only did we make it, we did better than the previous time that we did qualify, because the previous time we qualified, we were 5th. So we ended up coming 3rd at our regionals, qualified for the CrossFit Games on cloud 9. It was, 3 years of bitterness being filled up, and, we're back on track. This is where things got shitty. So about a month into training for the CrossFit Games, flights booked, tickets booked, hotels booked, money spent, family had bought tickets, family had bought flights, a lot of lives invested around this particular week of us going to compete.
Right.
And we get a call from CrossFit HQ that unfortunately one of our teammates had something in her, it was in her pre-workout that she tested positive for a banned substance. And it was one of like the most bullshit banned substances in the world. It was less effective than caffeine. And the girl herself, like, she's 10 times fitter than all of us anyway. So of all people who don't even need it, she's the one.
Right.
So lo and behold, we got kicked out of the 2018 CrossFit Games. So that's what I said, man. I said, we qualified twice, but we only went once. So that, I get upset talking about it. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it still hurts. It was so I've experienced failure, but then the way I saw that one was, that was a loss. Like, that was like grievance, because it wasn't like I didn't try hard enough. It's on me. I got to fight harder next year if I really want this. We did that year. We had it taken away from us.
Right.
Completely out of our control. And that was the point I realized this is by far the worst thing that ever happened to me. It sounds so funny, and it sounds so like, oh, you're a big deal, you didn't get to go to the CrossFit Games. But when you put that much time and effort and years of passion into it, yeah, it sucks. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, and I imagine that as a team, there's a collective desire to reach that pinnacle of your sport, your athletic career. And going to the CrossFit Games is like the ultimate. It's the most important thing, and winning the CrossFit Games, landing on the podium is the dream, right? Yeah. So.
And it got shattered that year for sure. But along with that came a ton of life lessons, whether they were athletic or not. They were the principles that were learned they can help in anything in life. So, it's one of those things where it's like, was it the best thing that ever happened to me?
Right.
I'm still questioning that, but I've learned a lot. That's for sure.
Well, what? Give me an example of what you learned from that experience.
Well, everybody fears the failure of trying something new or putting themselves out there. And at the end of the day, I mean, like if you think about that fear, a lot of the time it's kind of irrational. It's like, oh, I don't want to start a new podcast because maybe people won't listen to it, or I don't want to start a new business because maybe it won't go well, or I don't want to quit my job and follow my dream. What's the worst thing that happens? You fail, right? That's the worst thing that's going to happen. At the end of that, are you still going to be breathing? Is your family still going to love you? The things that really matter in life, are they still going to be there, or are they not going to be there? Right? And going through that loss, now at this point, 2 years in a row, it was like, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. Yeah, I went through some stuff, but you can't hurt me anymore now. There's nothing worse you could do to me. At that point, it's like everything is a win. You won't even see anything as a failure, because when you've had your biggest failure that there possibly can be, there's failure of lack of trying. That's on you.
Yeah.
And you got to own that shit, right? I've been through that, and it's like, yeah, it sucks, it hurts, it burns, but you can use that as fire. Then there's failure of something taken away from you.
Right.
It's worse, because that was out of your hands. That was out of your control. And when if that happened to you, it's like, you can't hurt me anymore. What's the worst that could happen to me? That's the literal worst in terms of athletic endeavor. What's the worst that could happen to me? That's happened.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm still passionate about what I do. I still love the training itself, because the one thing I can say is that, again, from an athletic endeavor, it's like, I love the grind. I love the work. I love the hard work. I know that it brings the best out of me as a person when I'm training for something. It brings it, and not even just in the gym, like my own mindset is more fired up when I'm training for something. Throw a pandemic at my gym for nearly 2 years. Cool. You know what that is? That's just the grind. That's just another opportunity for me to show like my passion for hard work. And that's why, like, people feel for gym owners, and it's like, what am I going to do about it? Complain about it? Like, yeah, everyone's bitching and complaining, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to get up and go work. My daughter was born like 8 weeks before the pandemic, and I had to be like to my wife, I'm sorry, I got to go. I have to save the business, and I got to grind, and I got to keep this thing afloat. And it is what it is. So it's just another opportunity to be like, I'm passionate about something, whether or not you try to take it away from me. And again, this was like another thing. It's out of our hands. Like, I'm still going to keep going.
So it sounds like you really gained a whole new perspective on life from that failure. Pretty amazing. And if you had to give someone some advice, someone who's going through, a similar situation where they're getting something taken away from them and they feel like it's a loss, it's not just a failure, what would that piece of advice be?
One thing I think would be is, if your own identity is almost too wrapped into one thing, and like, that's the only way that you see yourself. That's one thing that I learned from this, was that in the past, I saw myself as like, I am a CrossFit Games athlete, and like, right, that's what I am. But guess what? When that gets taken away from you, what are you? Your identity's gone. And that can hurt people. And that can be in other things in life. It's like, I'm an entrepreneur, but what happens when you close down your own business? I know a lot of entrepreneurs that did. I know that like, that would be a struggle for me if I close down my own business, being like, I'm no longer an entrepreneur, because that's my identity. If I let that be my identity. But what I learned that is, my identity isn't just that, oh, I'm a CrossFit Games athlete. No, I'm a hard worker. I'm a passionate person. I obviously embrace the fitness lifestyle. Like, those are the identities, and those principles of those identities translate to anything. But if I'm only one thing and I'm only the CrossFit Games athlete, what happens when that stops? It goes away. What happens to stay-at-home moms who have 2 or 3 kids when all of a sudden their kids don't need them anymore?
Yeah.
They lose that identity. And I've seen members and I've seen people go through that, and they're like trying to figure out who they are, because all of a sudden their identity's gone. So, something I would say is like, don't wrap your identity around one super individual aspect. Like, think about the overall position that it puts you in, and be that. If that means like, I'm a hard worker, I'm a caring person, cool. Like, what can you do with that mindset? What can you do as a caring person? That was one thing. Obviously, another thing is relying on people, relying on the people around you. I think our team was always friends. We were always friends inside and outside of the gym. We are even closer now than we were then. The day that we got that call, we all got together for a bonfire. You know what I mean? And it was like, don't get me wrong, it was a bad day, but we all got together for a bonfire and just came even closer. And I think if that situation never would have happened, I don't think we would be as close as we are. Like, it's a great group of people. Like, we all love each other, and we haven't competed together in, I don't even know how many years now. It's been like 5 years or 4 years. Relying on those people, relying on the other people around you and your own support people, because at the end of the day, every great individual needs a great team around them. You need to have that support. You need to rely on other people. And if you don't have them directly, like, finding it in other ways. At that time, I was listening to this podcast by this guy named Justin Sua. And he's got a really great mindset podcast. He used to put out a podcast every single morning. And I would literally, first thing in the morning, I'd wake up. It's like a 5-minute podcast would get me pumped up for the day. Like, I reached out to the guy on Instagram as I was going through this the next day.
Wow.
The dude responded. In fact, he called me. He's just like, what's your phone number? And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? The guy called me and had me on the phone for an hour. That he's the sports psychologist for, I think, like, some MLB, like Chicago, not Chicago, I lied, Milwaukee or something like that. So the guy's a sports psychologist, and like he called me, and I was like super appreciative of his time. And he like talked me through all these different things. And I was like, wow, like, first of all, thank you. Second of all, like he opened my eyes to how I should deal with this and how I should go through this, because he's got professional athletes who year after year after year, they don't make it to the playoffs. How do you stay motivated? Right. And
what a great experience. That's a fantastic resource that I'm sure you didn't expect. And then boom, this guy who you're like totally following reaches out and gives you advice and support. That's the world. I love people like that.
Yeah.
Who would you consider the 3 most influential people to you?
You know, I can definitely name one, and it might sound cheesy, but it's my brother.
Which one?
Chris.
I know you have a couple brothers.
Chris has been, from the time that I was young, like we're a big enough age group that he's the oldest, right? So it's kind of like he's the oldest, I'm the youngest, that particular positioning. I always followed him around as a kid, and I always looked up to him, not in a bad way, but my dad worked a lot, and I rarely saw my dad. And Chris was like he was my father figure at times, right? So, you know, if he went somewhere, I went with him. If he did this, I did this. If he started Muay Thai, I did Muay Thai. He started CrossFit, I did CrossFit. You know, even now, like little things go on, I'll still call him for like, hey, like I need your advice on something. Even if it's parenting, whatever. Just in so many ways, I guess it happened naturally since the time I was a kid. So yeah, number one's got to be him.
Cool.
You know, I'm not one to say like other athletes or anything like that. It might sound cheesy, but I want to say like number 2 and number 3 are my mom and my dad.
That's great.
It's, you know, my dad I can say my hard work ethic comes 100% from my dad. He's the hardest working person I know. Anybody who knows my dad, and even through the gym, they'll see my dad there all the time, like making something or like building something. And he's so handy, and he's so like, he just loves to help do things for people. And if it's like, oh, you know, last minute, somebody's water broke at their house and they called, and he'll go there quickly. It's the type of person he is. And that hard work ethic has been like very much associated with the Cristini family name. You know a bunch of Cristinis, and I know that you know that Cristinis are absolute hard workers. It's just
100%.
Like it's instilled in us. And I never heard him complain about the hard work either. You know what I mean? Like not only does he work hard, but he does hard work. Like I feel soft where I'm like, I'm in the gym for 12 hours a day, and it's like, oh, long day. It's like my dad's in a cold house in the winter with no windows, and he's building houses, and like he's been doing it for 40 years. It's like,
right.
I can't complain. Like he's way tougher than I'll ever be. And like if I think my hard work is hard, like his hard work is way harder, way harder. And then there's my mom. My mom is honestly, she's the reason where we are. You know, if it wasn't for her passion for fitness, none of us would be here. We wouldn't have this conversation right now. You know, she instilled in us something different other than just obviously hard work, but a passion for health, for our bodies, for movement. You know, I grew up in the aerobics room in the 90s. Like she used to lug me in the car seat and like throw me in the aerobics room, and she would throw on her headset and her spandex, and she would teach her class. And like, that was my early experience of fitness. So much so that my first job was cleaning the gym that she worked at. I was 12 years old, and I wanted to buy an Xbox. It was like when Xbox first came out. My dad was like, no. My dad was like hardcore old school Italian. He's like, no, video games are stupid. He's like, if you really want one, go get a job. I was like, okay, I'll get a job at mom's gym. Got a job, saved up the money. And I was like, I don't want the Xbox. I was like, I want more money. Like, I know how much work that took. I had to clean so many boogers off of these like machines. Like, I don't want the Xbox. Like I fell in love with that work. So it was 2 of them at the same time that like started it for me, and it's been my life ever since.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. My last question for you. What are some of the good habits that you practice and why? Mindset Conquest is all about, having the right mindset in life. And I believe that good habits are, the stepping stones to success in life. So what habits does Steve practice?
So I know there's like a lot of like wake up early and do this and journal and things like that. And I love them all and I'm all for all of them. A lot of my own habits come through my own training. And it sounds funny, but like people talk about, what's the word I'm looking for here? What am I thinking here? Meditation. Sorry. Brain fart.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds funny, but I feel like I have my own meditation time when I'm training. It's a time where I clear my mind and my brain is just focusing on breathing and my brain is focusing on just the feeling of my body. And it comes at almost like in like a painful place because I'm trying to kill myself while I'm training. But there is like yeah, I am, but there is almost like an inner peace when you're doing it because you're not worrying about other things in life. You're not worrying about paying bills. You're not worrying about having to go here. You're not worrying about COVID. It's an opportunity, whether it's 20 minutes or it's 5 minutes or something. Mm-hmm. I got nothing on my mind other than breathing and the kind of pain that my legs are probably in. The training itself has honestly really regulated my life. And that's why I say too, like, I know I'm at my best when I'm training and when I'm training for something. And then obviously with that comes a lot of other things. I typically eat pretty well. I don't have to think about it from a perspective where like I need to form habits around it because it's just kind of who I am. But at the same time, if there's some chocolate chip cookies, like I'm not worried about going to eat the chocolate chip cookies because I know that my lifestyle outbalances the eating the chocolate chip cookies every once in a while. Right. That I don't enjoy like going out and drinking all the time. Like, of course, everyone's got to let loose and I'm all for that, but it's just not who I am. And it's partly because of who I am as an athlete. So I typically have a quite healthy body. In terms of more mindset, that's where I'm a big fan of reading. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. I'm a slow reader and I tend to read the same line like 5 times. So I get more frustrated with that. So audiobooks are definitely one of my go-to habits. Number of podcasts as well. I like to, whenever I'm walking my dog, I usually try to throw on some headphones and listen to something that's going to help benefit me. And on a long drive. So if anything, really, for the mindset, it's audiobooks, it's podcasts, and then it's conversations with guys like you. Honestly, like it's when you start to have a certain mindset, you can start picking out other people who you realize that they have that same mindset. Yeah. It's having conversations with people like that around you, because those are the kind of people who you can elevate off each other, right? It's just like having a training partner, right? It's like I'm better at burpees and you're better at strength training. But if I do burpees with you, you'll get better at burpees. And if you do strength training, we'll be getting better at each other. Mm-hmm. If you're good with habits and like different mindset things, you can help me. But if I'm good with motivation, I can help you. And then we start to create that environment where you get other guys around you, where that just becomes kind of part of what you talk about. I don't care to just sit there and talk about, oh, did you catch the Raptors game? Like, yeah, okay, I caught the Raptors game. But like, what's some productive talk that we can have as friends? Because I think that even makes you better friends. It's not just wasteful time. It's like, hey, how can I as a friend better you? Mm-hmm. How can you better me? That's the kind of people I like being around.
Yeah, just good old wholesome conversation, not just BS, actual content, stuff that means something,
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. Listen, Steve, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you. You are very motivating. You're an inspiration, and I wish you continued success in your business, in your life, in your family, and in your athletic career. Where can our listeners connect with you online?
You can follow me personally, Instagram, Steve Cristini, pretty simple, at Steve Cristini. If you want to follow along the gym, that's where a little bit more of the lifestyle and branding stuff comes out. That would be at Cristini Athletics. Usually at this point, my own Instagram is like photos of my daughter doing something cute, or, a little bit of training here and there. But a lot of the kind of mindset stuff that we try to put out there, it gets put on our main page. That, or come by my gym. Like, I'm a doors open type person. I end up usually talking to people longer than I should a lot of the times when they come by. So come by the gym. I'm at Markham and Woodbridge. Send me a message and you can come chat.
Fantastic. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Cristini, thank you very much for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Have yourself a great day, man.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.